Thank you, Mr. President. Esteemed members of the Security Council, I have the obligation to react on the words said by Mrs. Gervale Švarc here today. Instead of speaking about the problems on the ground, about the real problems on the ground, about disrespect of human rights, abolition of political freedoms, about more than 200,000 internally displaced persons, about desecration of churches, monasteries, and cemeteries, about totally ignored crimes by Kosovo Albanians without any kind of judicial epilogue, Mrs. Gervale Švarc was telling us a story about her political wishes and goals, abusing the UN Security Council session to speak against UNMIK, to speak about its role, and against President of the Republic of Serbia, Mr. Aleksandar Vučić, who is, by the way, the president of your country too, Mrs. Gervale Švarc. And you should pay the special respect when you're speaking about the president of your country. Yes, it is the truth that so-called Kosovo is the result of separatist movement, of terrorist activities, of narco-trafficking and human organs trafficking. And Mrs. Gervale Švarc can give us lessons on that, helping to the entire world to know how something similar shouldn't happen, never, ever. Mrs. Gervale Švarc was speaking about butchers of the Balkans, but she missed to mention that the real butchers of the Balkans are the former so-called president of so-called Kosovo, Hashim Tači, and former so-called speaker of the Prishtina's parliament, Kadri Veselji. And at this very moment, both of them are in The Hague, in the detention unit of the special court formed by Pristina for the KLA's crimes because of their dimensions without precedent. Serbia is an independent, sovereign state with clear policy goals, which include the European path and respect of its traditional friends. The accusations against Serbia claiming that it is someone's proxy are disrespectful of this august body and the Organization of the United Nations. Serbia is a pillar of peace and stability in the region, and that has been stated by the leaders of almost all the member states sitting here today together with us. When it comes on the relation regarding the regional stability and cooperation, the contrast between President Vučić and Albin Kurti has never been bigger and more obvious. What the president is building every day, the bridges of cooperation in the region, such as Open Balkan Initiative, solidar exchange of missing goods, joint infrastructure projects. In the same time, Albin Kurti is destroying, mostly during the night, by sending special armored units, banning political rights, and ruining dialogue process. It is normal for him. Kurti has been one of political commissioners of so-called KLA, whose many victims are still waiting for the justice. Esteemed members of the Security Council, during June 1998, KLA terrorists attacked villages Retimlje and Ostorusha near Orahovac. Terrorists kidnapped 15 males from Kostić family and killed all of them. The only member of the family survived was in that time young woman Olgica Božinović Kostić. She was beaten and then raped. And she was the only one, as I said, survived from that family. Almost 24 years after this horrible crime, nobody has never, ever been proceeded, neither sentenced. At the same time, it is the same situation with the crimes who were done by these named by Mrs. Gervale Švarc as the some who helped them. On May 14, 1999, NATO aircrafts bombed on a road between Prizren and Suva Reka a long column of Albanian refugees, killing 87 persons, all civilians, 10 newborns, 26 kids under 15 years old. The term genocide should not be abused, especially not for the political sensationalist purposes to which Pristina has continuously been prone. Such rhetoric, in general, arbitrary assessment and claims without any evidence are frivolous, unfounded in reality, and serve the purpose of gaining cheap political points. Such irresponsible claims jeopardize any possibility of progress in the normalization between Belgrade and Pristina, between Serbs and Albanians. Finally, if we talk about the ethnic composition of the population of Kosovo and Metohija, then and now we should clearly present the facts and say that over 90% of persons living in Kosovo and Metohija today are Albanians, and that Serbs suffered in recent decades, that they were victims of crimes and expelled from their centuries-old ancestral homes and forced to leave them due to intimidation, discrimination, and threats. In support of that, we remind you that over 200,000 internally displaced persons residing in the Republic of Serbia without the possibility and conditions to returning to their ancestral homes. Pristina and its policy are responsible for that. Therefore, this idea and the attempt to reverse the well-known and often publicly proclaimed long-term aspiration and political goal of Albanian leaders from Kosovo and Metohija over the decades to create an environment with an ethnic composition that includes exclusively Albanians is cynical. It is the same situation when we are speaking about the sexual violence against women. Of course, that every crime is something horrible. But the data in the report we are discussing today was collected on the basis of the work of the Commission for the Verification and Recognition of Sexual Violence Victim Status in Kosovo and Metohija. Since the establishment of the Commission in February 2018, a total of 1,656 applications have been registered, of which 1,149 have been accepted. The number of victims does not diminish the horrific effect of this type of violence on each victim individually, but it should also be noted that speculating on numbers does not either contribute to the achievements of justice and leads to politicization and slowing down the reconciliation process. Mrs. Gervale said they are a vivid democracy with a huge potentials in the future and a role model for the democracy. They are not even able to respect their so-called constitution. Let me just mention something, what is mentioned in the Secretary General's report, speaking about the need to respect their so-called constitutional court decision on the restitution of the property of Monastery Visoki Dečani. And it is just one of dozens of similar or such decisions. But it is not strange that she was speaking in such a way. The reason is very simple. She was representing only herself, not an independent, internationally recognized country, which is the UN member state. And it is going to stay like that because their reason and their motivation is not to get the independence. These esteemed members of the Security Council, let me just tell you that you should take any of the interviews on Mr. Albin Kurti, and you are going to see that their final aim is how to make greater Albania and not an independent so-called state of Kosovo. Thank you for your attention.